Hello, 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 hello. We're going to get started here in just a moment. It's been 3 weeks since my last Facebook Live here on my profile regarding the 4 agreements. So I'm going to give everybody a chance to catch back up, but I thank you all for being here. Hey, Frank. Great to see you, my friend. Welcome, Catherine. Hi, Lynn. I'm going to wait just a few moments because I know so many people have gotten out of the habit after 3 weeks, and that was due to my travel. But I'm back home, and we're going to go ahead and reset on the 4 agreements. I'll do my best to bring a different perspective and wrinkle to it than the one that I did 3 weeks ago. I just didn't feel it was right to jump into the second agreement after such a long layoff. And we'll wait just another minute, and then we will get going. Hope everyone's having a wonderful week. We've had some crazy weather the last couple of weeks with traveling. But I'm back here in Southwest Florida with the heat, humidity, and thunderstorms. All right, we're going to get right into it. So, for those of you here for the first time watching my Wednesday night presentation or training, it is not about business. These Wednesday nights are a chance for me to talk to you about what is most important to me, and that's social awareness, social responsibility, where I share things that have had a profound impact on my life as I transformed from just a businessman and a sales trainer to whatever I evolve into. But one of the books that had the greatest impact on me was a book called The 4 Agreements. And over the years, I've talked about them, but we're going to reset and restart with the 4 agreements tonight. And the first agreement is a unique one. It's called Be Impeccable with Your Word. And when you hear the concept of being impeccable with your word, so many people define it different ways. In fact, some of the easy ways that people have defined it are very simply to tell the truth and always tell the truth, or to be in integrity, which means to do what you say you're going to do. They're not right or wrong answers, but there's a deeper meaning to being impeccable with your word, and it goes beyond saying what you mean. It goes beyond following through with your commitment or following through with your word. But the term is to honor yourself. Honor yourself. And what I've come to realize in my personal life and in working with so many people, that unfortunately most people don't have the ability yet to honor themselves because they've never actually learned who they are. So you can't honor yourself until you know yourself. And that comes from the Latin term noce te ipsum. If you watch The Matrix, that was the big message to Neo in the first Matrix movie, to know yourself. And once you actually know yourself, everything else falls into place. But the challenge for so many of us, and I say us because I don't sit back like I was a genius or things were easy. I'll start the training off by saying I don't believe anyone ever truly knows themselves, ever learns who they really are, unless they are broken. And when I say broken, I mean you are brought to your knees, humbled, and facing a storm. Because the closest thing that I can get to be impeccable with your word would be your character. And your character is who you are when nobody is watching. More importantly, your character is who you are when your back is against the wall. And I talk about this all the time. It's easy to be a fun guy. It's easy to be an easygoing person when everything is running smoothly, when business is going well, your health is well, your favorite sports team is doing well, you're making money, all the positive things in life, when they're all in alignment, you're not learning what your character is. It's when everything has gone horribly wrong. You are caught with an accident, your car breaks down, you get fired from your job, your spouse or significant other dumps you. When something, you get bad news from the doctor's office, whatever it is, or any combination of those things, that is what we call a true test of your character, because it's how you react and respond to those events and during those times that you learn who somebody truly is. Now, I don't believe that we have to go through that, but it just happens to be the nature of things, because we're not taught how to learn, how to ask the right questions, how to investigate who we are in any other way. So we're going to attempt to do that here tonight. My hope is to share with you my own experiences and guide you to find your own answers. So if we're going to say know yourself in order to honor yourself, honoring yourself is being authentic, being true to yourself. And I'm going to throw this out there as a question, because so many people, I won't say everybody, but so many people, including myself, have a period of our lives, and for some of you, you're still in this period. For me, I want to be clear about this. It lasted 45 years. I was 45 years old before I recognized that I actually operated out of a fear. Now, if you know me, you knew me from high school, college, when I started my career in the early 90s and all the way through, I don't project a personality of fear. I don't. And that is the real challenge for us, because if you don't know what to look for, if you don't know what questions to ask, if you don't know what to do, you can lie to yourself. You can fool yourself. So for me, my issue, my challenge began as a small child. And I'm going to preface this by saying I believe every single one of us has an event or multiple events between the ages of 0 when we're born and let's call it 10, our first 10 years, that shape our lives. And for virtually every one of us, it shapes us in the form of operating out of fear, because there are only two base emotions. Every emotion is derived from either love or fear. And if you're deriving your actions, your thoughts, and your emotions from fear-based, then you have to address that at some point in your life, or else it will consume you for your entire life. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, for me, my parents divorced when I was 5 years old. Now, don't anyone misunderstand. This is me sharing my story. That had a profound effect on me as a little boy. Now, I don't have any issue with my mom or my dad. The divorce had to happen. They weren't getting along. But it doesn't change the fact that it somehow affected me, and it affected issues in me that caused me to question my own worth. Fast forward a couple of more years. I was 8 years old and wanted to play Little League Baseball. And back then, because we're talking about the late 70s, early 80s, we didn't live in a society where every child got picked and every child played every game. In fact, Rocky, if you're still watching, drop a yes on there if you remember playing baseball with me in Little League, because I have a friend that actually is on here periodically, but we played Little League together, and he's a couple years older than me. But I was a little 8-year-old kid, and we had tryouts, and that first year, I didn't get selected. So I went through tryouts, and I was one of the kids not picked to be on any team. And there was the 8 and 9-year-olds, and then there was the 10, 11, 12-year-olds, and then 13, 14, and 15. So 8 and 9-year-olds, I was so horrible so inadequate that I didn't even get picked, let alone picked and sit on the bench. So it hit me hard, and it was a painful realization. And I thank my dad because he gave me the day to feel bad for myself. And then he said, look, you got two choices. If you really want to be a baseball player, then you've got you've got an entire year to prepare yourself for tryouts next year. Or if you don't really care and you don't really want to play baseball, then we'll find something else. And I really wanted to play baseball. So what my dad did was, way back then, found a batting cage and took me to the batting cage one night a week for an hour. And I hit baseballs. And then on weekends, he would throw the ball at me. He would work on my skills so that I would be better prepared for tryouts as a 9-year-old. And I can still remember that embarrassment, that failure, that whatever feeling I had caused me to bust my tail that whole next year to be the very best I could at tryouts. Now, the cool thing is, in 1 year's time, I managed to get good enough that when they had tryouts again, I didn't get selected to play in the 8 and 9-year-old league. I actually was selected for the step above, the 10, 11, 12-year-olds, which is why if Rocky is here, he'll remember I was this scrawny little runt, this tiny little kid whose uniform didn't fit. I was small to begin with, and I was 9, and everybody else was 10, 11, 12. But I had developed skills enough that I was able to not only be selected, but selected at the level higher than I belonged in. So you'd think that that would have solved the problem, but it didn't. It reinforced a bigger problem in me, which was that we were living in a performance-based society. And I know I'm dropping a lot of stuff on you here, but I'm trying to piece together using my own story. So now I realized if you're inadequate, you're worthless. But if you've got value, skills, talent, you're in demand. Well, what that did was it sent me down the rabbit hole of becoming a very type A personality, ultra competitive person who I didn't want to just be good. I always drove myself to be the very best. And I joked about this, saying that it's a sickness. It's an addiction. It's a sickness. But it drove me to the levels of insanity that whatever we were doing, whether it was officially being measured and judged or not, I felt this horrible void that I needed to be better than everyone else. Not to brag, not to be arrogant, not to do anything, but so that I felt good about myself, that I was the best at whatever we were doing. So I want to put that in perspective. That's not healthy on any level. It's not healthy on any level, but it's what drove me, because I had a ridiculously horrible fear of being judged. Now, let's fast forward through my entire adult life until the age of 45. I was a crazy freak when it came out to the gym and my physical fitness. I still go to the gym every day, but I don't have a problem with it. I don't agonize over it anymore. Because of 2 injuries, one that I sustained when I was 16 and one that I sustained when I was 45. And it was a hit and run bicycle accident. I was riding my bike, a lady drove her car into me, rode me off the road, took off, and I literally could have died. I could have been paralyzed, but instead, I'm thankful to God that I was able to sit up after the accident. My head was split open, my spine was compressed. I mean, it was a bad accident, but I could move my fingers, my toes, my arms, my legs, and I was conscious. So I said, thank you, God. And that right there was probably the biggest turning point for me, because my entire life shifted to where I was never, ever going to be able to measure myself ever again based upon my physical fitness, my strength, or my physique. Now, you want to talk about a shock to your system emotionally, spiritually, mentally, not physically. It was bad enough that physically I was fundamentally destroyed, but I had to regain my health. I had to get back to my physical health, but I had to do it with the knowledge that I was never ever going to be able to compare myself from a physical standpoint. Now, if that's how I had gauged myself my whole life, I was a competitive swimmer in college, I was a professional triathlete, I was a personal trainer, and I took pride in the fact that I always stayed in great shape. That became, for me, a turning point in my life, because now I had to say, if taking my physical fitness and my ability to exercise and work out the way I was always used to, taking that away from me, who am I? I could no longer identify as an athlete. I could no longer identify with what my comfort zone was. And I had to accept the fact that maybe on some level, I was driving myself because of that subconscious, unconscious lack of self-worth and unconscious judgment of others. Meaning I was never obnoxious or abusive. Like, I wouldn't say to somebody, hey, you're fat, or hey, you're whatever. But unconsciously, I judged myself by my physical fitness. And that's just as bad, because if I were being authentic and living truly free of judgment, it wouldn't have bothered me. So when you talk about honoring yourself and living judgment free, can you look in the mirror? Can you close your eyes? And can you be, the word is accepting. Can you be accepting of where you are right now? Meaning, if you want to improve things, that's awesome. We always can seek to improve ourselves, but we're not judging ourselves. We're not criticizing ourselves. We're not condemning ourselves. We're not comparing ourselves to others, because that is what really drives people to do things that are unhealthy. Let's talk about the false belief in who we are. When we're born, we're given a name. We're given a first name and a last name, and that's the name we get. I guess on some unconscious level, recognized that when my son was born, I wanted him to have my name, but I also wanted him to have his own identity. So his name is John David Jr., but we called him JD from the time he was born. When he went to school, they called him John. He didn't answer. The teachers were getting upset. They called a parent-teacher conference. We said, his name's not John, his name's JD. Call him JD. It's not a nickname, it's his name. And I actually told the teacher, if I have to go formally, officially change it, I will. But he will let us know if he wants to be known as John. His identity is JD, and if he wants to be called John, he'll let everybody know that. And it was cute because his two grandmothers, and one called him JD and the other one called him John, and he didn't answer until she said JD. And so it wasn't him being cocky, it was his little identity. It was the thing that he got. But think about how many of us were born, you got a first name, you got a last name. You didn't ask, you weren't given a say in it. But beyond our names, what else do we get? If your parents are religious in any way, you were given a religion. And if they are atheist, you were given that. Because when we're born right into that construct, right into that programming. We're born, and based upon our parents or the DNA that we were given, because even if you're adopted, you still are given a name. We're given a race and an ethnicity. We don't choose it. We're labeled, boom. White, black, Hispanic, Asian, African American, Native American, Indian. Like, we're given these labels. So, race, ethnicity, our nationality, whatever country you're born in, there you go. That's your nationality. We're given a political affiliation. If your parents are Republican or Democrat, if your parents are conservative or liberal, there is a really high probability, I'm going to say 99%, just like with religion, that that's who you're going to be. Now, at some point, it may change, but I'm talking about when you're born and for at least your first 10 years, this is all given to us. These are labels that we are given without a choice or an option. How about our class status? If your parents were educated, they went to college and they got white collar jobs, it's a white collar family. If instead they went and they have more of the blue collar labor type of employment, it's a blue collar family. You're 4 years old. What did you have to do with that? You're either lower class, middle class, or upper class. And if you're in the middle class, you're either lower middle or upper middle. Again, these are all labels that you take on as a little kid. And then the neighborhood kids, your schoolmates, the kids that you end up playing sports with, you fall into cliques and or get labeled and or get judged and or get ridiculed and or get bullied as a kid based on all that stuff that you had nothing to do with. And I'm not sure exactly when and where it changes because I've referred back to this many times. My son is now 11. When I used to take him to the park at 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, we would pull up and he had one thing that he cared about. Are there kids playing at the playground? If we pulled up and he saw a bunch of cars, he got excited. He didn't sit there going, I hope it's a bunch of boys or a bunch of girls. There's another one, gender. We're labeled with our gender. He didn't care if it was boys or girls. He didn't care race, ethnicity, national. He didn't care. He just wanted to see kids. He had hoped that they weren't all older kids because he wanted to be able to play. But the bottom line is, as a little kid, that's all you want is to play and have fun. And somehow, whether it's parents, whether it's school, whether it's older kids, whether it's the television programming, whether it's the society programming, we lose that innocence. We lose that ability to just be ourselves. And all of a sudden, we start becoming judgmental, and then we start living behind a mask because we're afraid of being judged. Now, I don't have all of the answers, but I've shared with you a little bit of my background. Now, some of you have fun with it. Some of you, it annoys the crap out of you. And the neat thing is, I don't care either way. In fact, if you follow our videos, there's a lady, I don't know who she is, that has been having conniptions that my hair is this long. Now, if you've known me longer than 4 or 5 years, you know I've had a buzz cut since I graduated high school. So I had a military flat top for 30 years. When I had my great transition 5 years ago and began to start thinking about things differently and began to do a lot of deep spiritual work and a lot of work on myself to heal my own issues and trauma, one of the things that I did for me was I wanted to change who I was. I wanted to grow, evolve, mature. And so a really clear physical indicator for me was this. Because when I would get out of the shower, I'd look in the mirror and I'd go, man, I don't even recognize you. I don't even recognize the guy in the mirror. And so for me, it was a really cool thing. Now, the funny thing is, as I've let it grow, and this is now 3 years, okay? For 3 years, it has been freaking people out. I've had people say, hey, have you gone through your phase yet? Are you ready to get your hair? I don't know. I will maybe one day get it cut, or maybe I won't. Who knows? But the bottom line is that hair bothers a lot of people. That hair truly bothers a lot of people because they are judging me by the hair. Now, I promise you, I've grown past anyone's opinion. Now, I used to be able to operate consciously, not caring what other people thought, but internally still seeking my own self-worth. So I felt the need to overachieve. I felt the need to prove myself. And part of the transformation and the reason why I leave the hair is it's a very real, physical, in-my-face reminder that I truly don't care. And that's not meant to sound arrogant. It's not meant to sound cocky. I found what brings me peace. I found what brings me joy. And the irony of it is, it has nothing to do with what I pursued for the first 23, 4, 5 years in my career. If you know my background, I've run businesses. I've been a consultant. I've been a national sales trainer. I've been a personal coach. I have made a lot of money in the world of business. And in the world of business, you put a suit on, you're clean shaven, you have a clean cut haircut, and you operate very corporate. And it served me very well. I made a lot of money, but there was a part of it that I loved, but I didn't identify. And the part of it that I loved was the helping people. And so I got to fulfill what I love to do in an environment that I wasn't happy in, because I wasn't happy wearing a suit. I wasn't happy traveling the country 90% of the time. I mean, in the years 2011, 12, and 13, I was on the road probably north of 250 nights a year. Let that sink in for a second. It happened also in the years 2005, 2006. I was on the road north of 250 nights out of the 365 in the year. That's how much I was on the road doing what I did, because I loved helping people. I loved working with them and setting up their home-based business. I loved all that stuff. But I didn't realize I could get the same intrinsic value, that same good feeling, without having to go out there and prove myself in business. So I made the decision a couple of years ago that when I do these, has nothing to do with business, has nothing to do with selling. Many of you have had, your own little aneurysms trying to figure out what my angle is and what am I selling, and I don't. I come on here and I share. It's like a vlog, a video log of my journey from the crazy type A hyper overachiever to the guy now who's very happy and at peace with himself, saying the true freedom and the true happiness is when you look in the mirror and you say, man, I love who I am. I'm going to keep trying to get better. I'm going to keep trying to improve, but I love who I am right now. Not in an arrogant, narcissistic way, but in a very comforting way. And it brings me to a couple of other words that will hopefully help you. So, I did not understand the word surrender. Go ahead and drop a number 1 or a yes if you yourself have ever had a knee-jerk reaction when someone said, learn to surrender. Please go ahead and let me know, because people would say you need to learn to surrender. Surrender used to be a horrible, horrible word for me. Surrender to me used to mean quit, used to mean give up, used to mean I lived my life that you never give up, that you never quit, that you never surrender. And that's how I absolutely, without question, operated in every area of my life. To the point where I was the guy that let go last after everybody else quit and I couldn't hold it on anymore. So my point was, the word surrender to me was the most foul, nasty, dirty word you could ever say. I have come to learn that the word surrender is the exact opposite. So the programming that I got, the education, all that stuff was false programming that caused me great issue my entire life. Because here's what the word surrender really means. To accept without blame. to accept without blame. I need to thank Larry Clapp and Greg O'Loughlin because they invested thousands, between the two of them, well over 3,000 hours over a 2-year period, helping me to let go, to surrender, to accept all of the, and I had 3 horrific issues that occurred between January, February, March, and April of 2015. I'm not even going to talk about them. That's how bad they were. But you hear me talk about you must be broken in order to be healed. You must be completely broken. When I tell you I was completely broken, and these 2 gentlemen invested thousands of hours of their time to help me, to help me be able to accept everything that had happened to me and not blame anyone else, to release the anger, to release all of the issue, not just forgive, to release it. Because even when you talk about forgiving, you can say, I forgive you, but if you're still holding on to it, if you haven't accepted it, if it's still causing issue inside of you, then guess what? You're not going anywhere. So I had to learn to surrender, which meant to accept without blame the incidents that occurred and the people that did me real physical, mental, and emotional harm. And then once I was able to do that, and to not just say I forgive you, because I've had to forgive people that never apologized. I've had to forgive people that still don't even understand or care what they did, but I learned that it had nothing to do with them. It was always for me. It was to free me. So I use that word because it truly set me free. The reason I bring that up is so many of us never get taught that. I was not taught that. I was given the label of winners, watch this, winners don't quit. Okay, I buy into winners don't quit. But if surrender means quit, then I can't surrender. So I'm hoping that somebody, even if it's just one of you, is going to have your breakthrough aha moment of, oh my gosh, I have been holding myself hostage in my own little prison cell because no one else is even paying attention to me. See, that's one of the coolest things, that once you truly allow yourself to be set free, once that really truly happens, then guess what? You don't care what other people think, and you realize they're not paying attention anyway, because we get so caught up in that judgment of others, which turns into the self-judgment, that we end up, unfortunately, living in this little prison cell. So back to the what questions do we ask? What is it that really makes you happy? What really makes you happy? See, most people don't know who they are, can't define themselves, and don't know what even makes them happy because they have been so programmed, whether it's we get programmed as little children by our parents, or we begin to get programmed when we go to school, or we get programmed by whatever. We're living this life like in automated robotic fashion, and we're not doing what makes us happy. I can't tell you how many hundreds of people I talk to on a monthly basis that don't like their job, can't stand their life, and they're afraid to make a change for the same reason. Why? I got to pay my bills. I got to make money. So ask yourself, are you really happy and fulfilled every day when you wake up, or does the thought of what you're going to do drain the crap out of you? Because if it's going to drain you, that's a clue. So, what would you do? What would you do if you didn't need money? What would you do if you had $10 million in the bank? Now watch this. I say $10 million because that's what people consider to be success. What is the definition of success? Are you measuring yourself against other people. You know, I heard one of the greatest examples of this a long time ago, but I wasn't aware enough to hear it. And so it just happened last week. But for those of you that know the comedian Dave Chappelle, he summed it up perfectly. He grew up and wanted to be a comedian, and both of his parents are very educated and they are in the education field. They're teachers. So his dad pulled him aside and said to him, I guess he was 18 or 19 or 20, and he was really serious about a career in comedy. He didn't want to go to college. And his dad said to him, son, it's a tough world out there. And everybody doesn't make it as a comedian, and you might not make it. And Dave Chappelle said, I looked at my dad like a little smart aleck, and he said, you know what, Dad? It depends on your definition of making it. So his dad said, okay, what do you mean? And he said, well, you're a teacher. If I could make the same amount of money you make doing comedy, then I made it. And he said, my dad looked at me and he smiled and he said, son, if you can keep that attitude, then I think you should go for it. And it's as simple as that. See, if you're not comparing your financial, your physical, your whatever status with anyone else, you're free. If you're not measuring the car you drive with everybody in your neighborhood or your friends or whatever, if you're not measuring your house, if you're not measuring the clothes you wear, if you're not measuring your physique, think of all the things that you could potentially, in your mind, be afraid that you're being judged, you're being compared, you're being measured. What would it be like if you didn't? Now, for those of you that really know me, I wear polo shirts and cargo shorts 90% of the time. I live in Southwest Florida, so putting long pants or jeans on, not the easiest thing in the world about 8 months out of the year because it's hot and humid down here. I wear flip-flops or sneakers. You're not going to find me in dress shoes a whole lot. It doesn't mean that I don't own suits. It doesn't mean that I don't own dress shirts. It doesn't mean that I don't own jeans. It means I prefer not to wear that 99% of the time. Does it cause people to judge me? Sure. Do I care? No. Just like the hair. I could cut the hair tomorrow. But why? I don't want to right now. And there's nobody out there that means more than how I feel. Meaning, don't be arrogant, don't be narcissistic, but you only have to take care of you. You only have to make you happy. And you are the only one that has to love you. And that's not taught to us. That's not part of our programming as little kids. It should be, but it's not. And before you go blaming your parents, don't blame your parents because they weren't taught the right stuff. Okay? There's my boy Eric. Eric, I love it. And you have no idea how many people think I'm a hippie. I love it. But the point I'm trying to make is we should live our lives making ourselves happy, following our own passion and filling our own heart, but never, ever doing any harm to anyone else. I'm going to say that again. Your job is to do what brings you joy, what you're passionate about, without doing any harm to anyone else. Here's why. If you don't love yourself, it's impossible for you to love anyone else. If you don't love yourself, it is impossible for you to truly love anyone else. I mean, you can go through the motions and you can think you're doing it, but if you don't love yourself, how could you possibly know how to love anyone else? We talk about things like unconditional love. A lot of people talk about it until you really truly know it, you don't. And I will sum up unconditional love for you. It's loving someone else, doing things for that person, whether they care, whether they accept, or whether they reciprocate any of it back to you. Let that sink in for a second. How many people out there do you honestly and selflessly love, take care of, do things for, that you could care less if they noticed, acknowledged, accepted, were grateful, or reciprocated any of that kindness or love back to you? Very few people. Very few people. That's unconditional love. Forgiving somebody that never apologized is a form of unconditional love. Some stuff to think about. But being impeccable with your word is honoring yourself. It's investing the time to learn who you are. Investing the time to understand who you really are. To never ever judge anyone else and to never fear being judged. It doesn't mean be an arrogant jerk, because if you're an arrogant jerk, you are an arrogant jerk. But you can be comfortable with yourself, love yourself in every way, and not be arrogant, not be narcissistic, not harm other people, just be at peace with yourself. That is the ultimate goal for all of us. I could go on, but we're bumping up on 9 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and basically wrap this up. But I encourage all of you. I will be back here next Wednesday, and my travel's over, and we will cover the 4 agreements. Next week, we're going to do number 2, second agreement. But right now, I want you to take this week. I want you to take this week and invest the time into you. Many of you private message me, but I'm asking you, whether you share it with me, you share it with the world, is irrelevant. You need to do it for you. You need to figure out who you are. You need to figure out what makes you happy, what brings you joy, what brings you peace, what would cause you to wake up excited to go do something. Like, I actually am excited to go to the gym. I love working out. I love going to the gym. I get excited when we have a lightning and thunderstorm. It's hilarious because I walk outside barefoot on the golf course in the rainstorms, and I love it when we have the powerful lightning and thunder. Now, all the neighbors think I'm nuts. There are people all over the golf course because I'll walk for a half hour, and they probably sit there going, there's that nut job again. But my point is, that is the most peaceful time for me, in the driving rain and the chaos of the storm. But those are things that I enjoy. I enjoy when I have the chance to share with and interact with many of you who are also going through the chatter in your mind. It's called a monkey brain. The monkey brain is the chatter in your head that causes you to question everything and not listen to your heart. So I've been blessed with the help from others and been given the gift to share it with others. Those are the things that make me happy, and none of them make me money. I do other stuff to work and make money, but it's not who I am. It's not what brings me joy. It's not my passion. And for those of you that have been watching, I have been, for the past few months, trying to merge the two. I've been fighting an uphill battle for almost 30 years, but I just may have turned the corner to finding the ability to go ahead and do what I love to do and actually get paid for it. And the bottom line is, that's what I wish for each of you. So until next Wednesday, by the way, please do me the favor. I need you to interact with me. I don't like doing lectures. So the more of you that will comment, I see Big George and Frank always comment on here, and they don't just go hi, they're willing to share themselves. I see Miss Jennifer Mortensen is on here. Please, I'm asking all of you, share, comment, interact. That's what these are for. They're not in a private group. I don't charge money for it. I want to see how many people we can wake up, we can elevate, we can allow to truly be free, to recognize, holy crap, I've been in this prison. My own head was my own prison because I was afraid of being judged by other people, instead of recognizing no one's judging you except you, so let's break out of that and be free. Until next Wednesday, this is John Costino saying be blessed and thanks for being here. Good night, everyone.